Hello, it is Idre here, and I am going to be doing another review that I've been waiting for. I pre-ordered it, it's gonna be coming out Saturday, but the live Spirits from Depeche Mode, the live album with the Spirits in the Forest documentary. As you see, I have a lot of my stuff here. There's still some more Depeche Mode stuff over there, and I have posters everywhere. As you can tell, I'm a big fan. I've talked about them quite heavily on this channel, and today I have a lot to talk about. So, first, a little bit of background here. I've been in the Depeche Mode for about as long as I can remember. They were really the band that got me into music. And now you can tell by looking at me that I am young. I did not grow up in the time when they were in the 80s or 90s, growing all that. Obviously, I'm younger, so I got into them a lot later. But I've gotten into pretty much their entire discography. With most bands, I usually could pick out a few eras of their discography that I'm not that into. Not really with Depeche Mode. I tend to find something interesting, something I really like about each and every era, each and every album, and that's what I love about them. They bring something new to the table each time they put out a new release. Like, for example, after Alan left in the 90s, they came back with Ultra, which is one of my favorite albums of theirs, and then they did another weird turn and did Exciter, which is a very chilled out, very electronic, very eccentric album. And then the next one they did Playing the Angel, which was much more upbeat. So either way, I quite enjoy all of their material. Obviously, you have people have their personal preferences. There's a lot of people who don't like the new stuff. I, for one, do enjoy the new stuff quite a bit. I actually enjoy some of the new stuff just as much as I enjoy some of the old stuff. Like, Spirit is one of my favorite albums of theirs. That's just my opinion. That being said, going into this, I saw them twice on the Global Spirit Tour. Those were the first times I had seen them, and it blew me away. Like, I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't think it was going to be so good. It was, though. It was really strong. It was a really strong performance. I teared up. I got really emotional, but it was amazing. Not only was Dave a wonderful frontman that had a bunch of energy and a really strong voice, even if he's older and can't sing everything the same way he used to, he still has an extremely powerful voice and an extremely powerful presence on stage. And honestly, despite the criticism people give of the drummer, I quite enjoyed having the live drummer there. It actually added a nice little extra human element to it. It kind of really drove home that connection to the music, in my opinion. Now, going into this, how was the performance on Live Spirits? I guess I should bring up that this was the final show, or the final two shows of the Spirit Tour. At least that's what was recorded, and they took the best of each performance in Berlin. And it's really good. First off, the first thing that really stuck out to me was Dave. Dave felt very passionate in all of these recordings. Not only did his voice come across very powerful and very passionate, you could almost feel his energy. Now, it's a sort of a weird thing to bring up, because so far I've listened to the actual audio quite a few times, and I have to say that this is actually, I think, a stronger vocal performance than the previous live album, Live in Berlin. The reason I say that is because on the other one, he seems to hold back a little bit more. He seems to be very much more concise and very much to the point, very much trying to stick to the T of the song and get it down exact. Here he kind of lets loose a little bit. So, but that leads to not hitting every single part of a song, but you could feel the energy behind it. You could feel him moving around on stage in a way, getting really into it. So it almost makes up for any little things here and there. And I really thought that he gave a really good performance here. For the most part, he sounded great. His tone was on point for the vast majority of this album. And even towards the end, when you're already 2 hours in, he's still belting out with some of his best vocal performances. On the cover of David Bowie's Heroes, he hit some wonderful, wonderful high notes. And also, on the song, which one was it? God, I'm totally blanking. I'm sorry. Stripped. The beginning of Stripped, he knows how to restrain his voice a bit. He knows not to be over singing everything, and that's what I appreciate about him. He doesn't over sing, and he does that, and he sings very well here. But overall, great performance from Dave. Now, what about Martin? Martin vocally, pretty solid as well. I will say that there are a few moments here and there where he does come in a little late, but besides that, this is a spot-on performance of what I want from Martin. The acoustic and the songs where he sings, such as Insight, which was a great choice because I love the Ultra album. So it was really shocking for me to actually hear them pull that out. I did not think they were going to do that. And then the other song that I wanted to bring up that was acoustic was I Want You Now. Both songs where he does show off his voice quite a bit here. He actually shows his low end a bit as well. But overall, solid performance from Martin. And actually, I want to bring up The Things You Said, which was a song that when I saw them where I live, it was one of the first times they had played it since 101 back in 1989. And I expected them to play it because I heard videos of it. But that took me by surprise, though, even though I knew it was coming. That, and in this live album, they represent that quite well. I really, really, really like the way he sings, and I actually really like Peter's backing vocals on here quite a bit. It really adds that extra touch that the song needs. I guess I should bring up Martin's guitar playing while talking about Martin. The way this is put, the guitar is very up front on this album, and I enjoy that on the vast majority of these tracks. The only one where it comes a bit jarring is on Never Let Me Down Again, but even then he plays it to a T, and it's not that problematic. It just kind of catches you off guard every now and then. But, for example, on A Pain That I'm Used To, that his guitar tone on there is beautiful. The beginning of this album, or at least going backwards, you hear that strumming chord, the really distorted chord, which sets the tone for the show, I gotta say. And throughout this, he has some pretty solid guitar playing, and I still will always have a soft spot for the guitar playing he does towards the later half of Enjoy the Silence, with his little kind of doing his little thing during the bridge section. I've always liked that. I know some fans get a little weird with that extended version of Enjoy the Silence. I, for one, quite enjoy that a lot. Now, what about the synthesizers? Since I'm still talking about the performance here, they did a good job with all these synth sounds. There has been a few shows in past tours where they don't necessarily get all the sounds right, and sometimes it's not always on top of it, but pretty much every song here has the right synth tones. It's a hard thing to put in words, but it's easier when you compare the album version to the live version. But now, one thing I do want to make clear is that I do not want to go to a live show and just hear the same exact thing that I hear on the record. And the reason that is because if that's what they're going to do, then I might as well just listen to the record. So I quite enjoy the way that some of these synth sounds were altered a bit. Some of these intros were extended with new synth openings. World in My Eyes had a new extended opening, which I quite enjoy, because then it makes it even more exciting when you hear the ba-na-na-na. It takes you off guard, and then you're like, whoa! At least that's how I felt. And perhaps the best extended opening on this album is from Everything Counts. Funny enough, when I saw them, and I heard that opening, I liked what it was, but I had to go to the bathroom really bad. And I was like, this is a really interesting opening. Maybe I should just go really quick if I wasn't sure if this was the right, I didn't know what song they were doing. And then the minute I decide I'm going to go to the bathroom, I hear the and I'm like, oh my god, they're doing Everything Counts. So I ran back, and I enjoyed it so much, because that intro builds the hype of a concert. And the way they did it on here, on this live album, is perfect. The reason I like when they do extended intros is for that very reason I said. It takes you off guard. It adds something new to the song that wasn't there before, so that when you're going to see a band live, you actually get something that's unique and special, not just the song directly played how it is on the album. So I really enjoy that opening, and it actually suits the song very well. But overall, the synth sounds on here were very good, and they actually did, I think, do a really good sound of sampling stuff on here, or at least maybe not sampling, but actually using some of the older sounds, especially on The Things You Said, that sounded straight actually from some of those sounds from the album, which was interesting to hear. And even on the drums, I do want to bring up the drums because that's always a big subject with with Depeche Mode nowadays. But the drums on this album actually are produced really well, and I really do enjoy the fact that there is some filter on these drums. It's not just a straight up drum kit. On World in My Eyes, they actually use they use some similar filters that you actually get on the album version, which clearly is not a real drummer, but the snare has a different tone to it. Never Let Me Down Again. The snare has a different tone to it. And there's this kind of tom drum roll thing at the end of Cover Me, which also seems very filtered, which I quite enjoy. It adds to that electronic element of the band, while still having that extra energy and human element from having a live drummer. So overall, I was very pleased with the drums. A lot of people still criticize Christian Eigner's overplaying on songs like Enjoy the Silence, which I understand. That big long fill that he does in the beginning of the bridge isn't for everybody. For me, I personally enjoy it. I could see why people wouldn't, though. But overall, all the band members did a great job on the performance of this show. There's really little negative to say here. You could feel the passion, you could feel the energy of each and every person on stage. And also, I forgot to bring this up, but Peter Gordino's bass playing on here is actually pretty good. There's quite a handful of songs here where he plays bass. I'm pretty sure he plays it on Heroes, but he also is probably most prominent on Useless and on Pain That I'm Used To. And great, solid bass playing. Nothing negative to say there. The next thing I want to bring up is the overall production of this album. I'm very satisfied with the production here. There has been some previous albums where they have a hard time getting the right balance between vocals and drums and guitar and all that. But everything seems pretty balanced here. The drums are definitely there, but they're not so up front in the mix where it drowns out everything. And I love that about this. The bass on this album is very heavy, but not so heavy that it drowns out everything, but heavy enough that you get that experience of going to see them in an arena, if you get what I'm saying there. But yeah, overall, I really like the vocal production a lot. Arguably the most. That's probably my favorite part of the production on here. Dave's vocals sound nice and crisp. They don't sound drowned out in any of these songs, really. And I would say it actually sounds the brightest on Cover Me, because it's a very more minimalist song in a way, and his vocals are very nicely produced. And I like that about it. And those vocal productions also go well for Martin when he's doing lead vocals as well. And the backing vocals were produced interesting as well. I actually kind of liked how they added a bit of reverb, a bit of ambience to the backing vocals on most of these tracks to kind of make that, once again, add that extra feel that this is being played live in a big area. It's not just being played, I guess, that's not being ripped directly from the soundboard. There's actual production getting put into this. And I think the production does the show justice, and it does their live show justice overall. And it did bring back many nostalgic memories of seeing them twice, because the production was pretty spot on. Now, the track list. I'm not going to go into each and every song, but I will go into some of the highlights here, some of the ones that were unexpected. I'm going to first go over some of the deep cuts here, or some of the ones that were more unique to this live album than some of the other ones. Besides the new songs from Spirit, which are obviously going to be unique here, they pulled out It's No Good, which they didn't do on Live in Berlin, and that's actually one of the strongest performances on this album. The production on there is orgasmic. I love that thing, the bass, and I really, really, really like the way that they do that lead riff on It's No Good live. It adds a very raw, very loud, very energetic sound to it when it's not played exactly note for note, and there's kind of like this rising notes. I'm pretty sure it's Peter Gordino doing that. I could be wrong, but I love the way It's No Good sounds. But there's a good amount from Ultra that I was really glad to hear. Useless. One of my favorite songs from Ultra, one of my favorite more rock tunes from Depeche Mode. I really liked how they played this live. I very, very clearly remember when they played this song live, me going nuts, because I love this song, and I was not expecting them to play it live. So I'm glad that they decided to do it on this live album. And I really like Martin Gore's guitar tone here. It's really upfront. It's really raw and distorted, but not so much to the point where it drowns out everything. Strong performance. Some other ones that were rare that they pulled out was The Things You Said. The first live really appearance on a tour since the Music for the Masses tour. And I gotta say, that was a very nice surprise. I kind of already covered that, but I think that the sounds that they used there are actually really good. I was a little nervous when I heard they were bringing back The Things You Said, because I know that they like to sometimes take the older songs and make them into piano ballads, which I don't mind, but I really, really, really like the album version of The Things You Said, so hearing that live and hearing that displayed well on this album was really good. And Insight, another song that kind of caught me off guard. Even though it was acoustic on piano, I was not expecting them to do this, or at least play this for the live album, because usually they will throw somebody on here, or another bigger acoustic song like But Not Tonight. So that kind of caught me off guard, and I was really glad. Insight is another great song from Ultra. I've always loved the lyrics on that song, and I actually quite enjoy hearing Martin do it. That's actually one of those songs that Dave sings that I actually enjoy a lot when Martin does it. It kind of adds an extra feel to it with his more vibrato vocals. So overall, that was very nice. That was very nice to hear them tackle that song live. And Peter Gordino, as usual, great piano playing, beautiful piano playing actually. And I love the harmony between Peter and Martin towards the end with the "gotta give love, you gotta give love." It's a great moment on this album that I quite enjoy, and it was really nice to hear. And this I Want You Now was another one that they did acoustically, which turned out very well. And perhaps one of the most interesting songs on here is their cover of David Bowie's Heroes. They did do a session version of this, I think, in 2017, around the time Spirit came out, from the Highline sessions, and that was a very strong performance. I loved Dave's vocals there, and he delivers on this live album. I know I kind of already brought up the performance side of this review, but Dave's vocals are really strong on this track, and I can't bring that up enough. I mean, it's just really good. He definitely hits some really good falsetto notes that he really proves that he has it in him as a vocalist. You could tell he's pushing himself as a vocalist here. And overall, the instrumentation is good. I actually like the mix of drum machine in the beginning, then being followed up by a simple live drum track as well. That's very nice to hear. It's very nice to hear those really early electronic roots still popping up in their music. So I was really happy to hear that this song turned out very well on this album. Some of the newer songs. I quite enjoy Spirit. I already brought that up, but hearing some of these songs live added an extra element to me. Poison Heart was surprisingly a really well-performed song. I really was not expecting that to be one of the best ones on here, but it turned out to be one of my favorites, not gonna lie. I really like Dave's performance. He has a nice sense of kind of like moving around. I don't know how you describe it, but he has a really good energy on this song. Really slithery, kind of I don't know. He like slithers around on this song, but it turned out really well there. And Where's the Revolution is a great song, and I loved hearing that live. I love the rendition of it on here as well. Overall, the new songs from Spirit were performed to a T on this. Cover Me's probably the best performed one. Probably arguably one of the best performed songs on this entire album. But yeah, what I like a lot about this track list is that it does have a good blend of old hits, new songs from Spirit, as well as some deep cuts, like I said. And so it's nice to hear them kind of dig deep into their discography and pull some of these songs out, like Insight, like The Things You Said, and even play It's No Good. Even though that's a big song, they really didn't play that much on the last tour, and they really didn't play Everything Counts on the last tour either. So it's nice to hear them bring those two back. Those were obviously they're big hits that everybody knows, but it's really good to hear those live again, because I wasn't sure if they were going to. But with that being said, overall, the final part of this review, how did it compare to the actual live performance that I saw on this tour? And I think that it does it justice very well. It's very well. Not only does the production do it justice because it's just produced in a way that feels live and energetic, the performance itself is on top of their game. and just the production is like the icing on the cake here. And the track list is very similar. They don't really change up their track list too much, or their set list too much between each and every show, because they have the big visuals and everything, so they need to have kind of things in a uniform manner. That doesn't bother me all that much. Some people are a bit more crazy about that than I am. But, so I've heard a lot of the songs that were on this album live, and it almost felt like it was recorded at the show I saw. It was just very close to that live sound that they have nowadays. And I guess my final point here is comparing it to some of their older performances. Now, I see this a lot. People say that Depeche Mode's performances aren't as great as they used to be. They don't have as many details as they used to. The drums overpower everything. Dave sings differently. And just overall, the sound's different, a lot of people say. And they're not wrong. Things are different. And I kind of covered this in my Depeche Mode video talking about their evolution and everything. But I still think this is a strong performance. And, well, obviously people are going to like 101 more for many reasons, between just they like the performance more, or there's the nostalgia with it, or they like the track list more, or they like not having a drummer for whatever reason. But I think this is up there. This isn't bad on any means. This is a really strong, solid performance that is one of their best live albums they've put out. And it's, in my opinion, it's up there with some of the older performances from 101, from Devotional. Now, that may be a controversial thing to say because they are much older. They do sound older as well. Their voices do sound much more aged, and it is a very different live setting. There's a drummer. It's very more rock-oriented in a lot of ways. But that doesn't take anything away from it, in my opinion. To me, Depeche Mode shouldn't be limited to their 80s sound or their early 90s sound. They're people. They change. And I really like the way they have progressed as a band up to this point. They keep on exploring with new risks taken on each and every album, from the more political Spirit to the more bluesy Delta Machine, to the more analog Sounds of the Universe, or the more experimental Exciter. They're out there taking more risks than they have ever done before. And this live album greatly represents a lot of that. And I have very little negative to say here. I'm not going to give this a proper out of 10 rating, because this is a live album. That's kind of unfair to be giving a proper rating like that to a live album. But please listen to this. Please check it out. And please order the video and all that too, because it's very strong, and Depeche Mode's still on top of their game despite their older age. It's great hearing the old songs live, but it's even better hearing some of the newer songs live and some of the deep cuts live. Really great track list here, really great production, really strong performance. I'm really glad that I got to see them on this tour. That was a great experience that I'll never forget. And yeah, that's about it. Live Spirits is a wonderful live album, and I recommend everybody checks it out. I know that some of the older fans aren't going to like it as much as I do, just because it's not really the same. It's very different sounding than some of their 80s and 90s material, especially live. But they're all pretty good here. Not much negative to say. And that's about it for now. I'm probably going to talk about Depeche Mode some more on this channel, because that's what I like to do. But that's it for now. Depeche Mode. Live Spirits.